Hello, and today we're going to do a Blackwater build with some lovely piece of driftwood that I managed to pick up at the store. So it's not flatly cut, but some silicone against the glass actually will stick it in place quite nicely, as long as I can prop it up with some bits of rock. It should be heavy enough, but just in case it isn't, I'm also going to use some super glue and tissue to actually stick these rocks against the wood. The activator spray will make it go hard instantly. And this is some Nutribase, which I'm popping into the bottom. It's made by Denale, and it is a mix of nutrients, bacteria, sand and gravel. So it's quite a useful base for stem plants to get some of the nutrients from. And that will be capped off with some gravel. I want a relatively deep substrate base here so that the plants will have space to grow. I'm not using anything like aqua soil, so just the nutrients and some root tabs which we'll put in later. So this will give a nice height towards the back, which just gives a bit more of a sense of depth in the tank. Now in the last build I completely forgot to factor in the filter, so for this one I'm not going to make the same mistake, and I'm going to tuck this one here. And the sand on top is just a capping sand, and we're going to pop in some root tabs now. These will sit beneath the sand layer within the gravel. So I'm just taking each piece out and breaking them in half and spreading them throughout the tank in the areas where I want to plant these stem plants. So the sand can then cap it off so that the nutrients don't leach into the water, and this will create a nice smooth layer on top. Now it's quite likely that some of the gravel will come up in the planting stage, but that will just add nice little areas for detail. These are some plants that I've retrieved from a previous tank. So we've got a couple of small bits of Anubias here. They're likely Nano petite. On the left hand side there you can see an Amazon sword which did quite well, so I'm going to put that one back in. And towards the middle and the right hand side at the front is some Cryptocorini with some Lugudwigia on the right hand side. And we've got a Crinum bulb in the middle which has gone completely bonkers, so we'll put that one back in too. So the taller plants I'm going to pop towards the back of the tank. They should get plenty of light from the light that I've got. It's a fluval light with a day-night cycle, so it works quite well. But this is the area as well which has got the most substrate and nutrients in it, so that's quite good for the Amazon sword there. And the crypts can cope with less light, so they'll go in the front of the wood piece because they'll cope a little bit better with that. Now this is a Hygrophila corymbosa Thailand. It is one of my favourite plants at the moment. Grows quite tall and quite woody, so we can use a bit of that. And we've got another Lugudwigia here. This is a Lugudwigia pilastris green. We don't have enough light for reds to work very well, so we're going to pop this one in instead. Now to prep your plants, just to give a quick viewing for those that don't know, the rock wool that surrounds it usually comes off in nice big chunks initially. You don't really want too much of that in the water column because it's got a huge amount of nutrients in it which will leach and potentially cause algae problems. So you just pick off that as best you can, and then I just use a fork and just gently kind of scrape between the roots with the tines to get off the last of the rock wool there, and you end up with kind of more than one piece of plant, which is quite nice. So these are again going to go towards the back solely because they are quite tall growing, but I am putting them essentially around the front of the filter to just try and kind of hide some of that grey mass a little bit better. These will need a little bit more light, particularly the Ludwigia, so I'm trying to keep them over the right hand side of the tank to enable them to get a bit more light. And just for a bit of decoration in the front, we're going to pop in a couple of rocks and tuck in a couple of crypts there with lovely crypt flamingo, which goes very pink, so it gives a bit of a colour difference between that and the green, and a spray to stop them from drying out. So this Bulbitis hudelotti is a epiphyte plant, so this will be stuck on the wood or on rocks if you want to. I've managed to wedge a piece of the plant in a little nook there, but the other one I wanted to actually be more towards the top of that lovely hole to give a nice place for the fish to hide. So all you need to do is just pop a little bit of super glue gel on the rhizome, which is the large root at the top, and stick that down, and again a little bit of activator to make it set instantly. And last couple of pieces will tuck into, again, some of the nooks and crannies around the wood. Now you'll notice I ran out of battery, so the tank is full. There's also a couple of Anubiuses there, so one on the front rock and a couple of lovely different varieties towards the back on the wood. We're going to pop in some conditioner here. I filled it up with tap water, and this will just take out any chlorines and heavy metals from the water and make it safe for the fish. The fish we're actually putting back in from the previous build, so they'll go straight in, and we'll pop in the beneficial bacteria to help kickstart the nitrogen cycle. And what that will do is break down any bad ammonia or nitrites that are in the water into nitrates which the plants can use. Talking of plants, we'll pop in some plant fertilizer, and what this will do is while the plants are still growing their roots into the substrate because they're quite new, this will give just a little bit more nutrients just at the early stages for them to grow while they're establishing their roots. So popping the critters in, we've essentially got some kuhli loaches here from the last build, some shrimp and a hillstream loach. The kuhli loaches are quite pale at the moment because they've been sat overnight in a tub with a filter and a heater, but obviously they don't like that, they're a little bit disturbed by it. And as always, the hillstream does not want to leave the jug. And a couple of little ram's horn snails in to help keep the algae down. You can see in the background our filter's quite established, so that will help the cycle begin faster, and we'll just keep an eye on it over the next couple of days. And this is the following day, so you can still see the water's a little bit misty. That's because the filter is still taking any of the particles out of the water. The shrimp are doing quite well and exploring and starting to pick at some of the things. They generally feed on kind of bacteria and particulates on the surface of things like sand and leaves and rocks. So again, they'll be quite good to keep the algae down. We've just got a variety of them in here. And just a view from the side, you can see there's actually quite a nice gap towards the bottom of the wood, which was not intentional, but allows another little hiding place that the fish can get back to and feel safe. And I will put some floating plants on the top here to just kind of help again with the algae. This tank was redone solely because the last one ended up with a bit too much algae. You can see just in the background there, one of the kuhli loaches is out and about. Again, looking quite pale. His blacks are not as black as normal, but he'll gradually get used to it, and then we probably won't see him very much because I would imagine that he'll spend most of his time hiding in the hidey holes that we've given for him. So that's that, and we will skip ahead to a week's time, where I've actually got the additional fish. So you can see everything's starting to grow up a bit. The plants on the right hand side are doing well. And for this tank we got some guppies. We've never kept guppies before, just solely because we don't have enough tanks and we've got other fish in the tanks. So we got a nice colourful bunch here, a good variety, and a good selection of males and females. In general, most of the males are the more brightly coloured and fancy ones, although we have got a couple of females here you can see kind of towards the top with some beautiful coloration on their tails. The males though that we've got, I've got some nice iridescent colouring, these kind of black and leopard ones. I have no idea what species these are, what colour varieties they're called. I just fundamentally picked the ones that I thought were pretty in this circumstance. So you can see they're all very big bellied females, so they are ready to have babies. The guppies are live bearers, so they do breed prolifically, and what you will find is that all of these different varieties will breed together. It doesn't matter what colour they are, so we might end up with some quite interesting babies out of the breeding of these. So quite nice for children guppies because they're obviously very, very easy to breed, but you do need to have a decently sized tank if you're going to keep the babies, because while there might be some predation by other fish, for the most part most of the babies tend to survive, so you do need space for them to grow up if you're going to keep hold of them. Down here as well we've got little Otocinclus. We've got a pair of them in here. So he is an algae eater. He's doing a good job, as we can see there on one of the older Anubiuses that I popped in. So the flow on this filter, which is an Oase internal filter with a built-in heater, is not particularly high. It's got either a central spout or a spray bar functionality, and generally I keep it on the spray bar because most of the fish do tend to quite like swimming up into the flow. And actually you can see them here picking at some old algae that's dying off from the crinum that we've got in here. Which is really handy. They don't generally eat algae too much, I don't think, but they seem to be quite happy picking off this algae as it's dying, so that's good. It's just quite nice to see them all swimming around, and we found that they do actually like tucking themselves up into the Bulbitis towards the top. The flamingo, crypt flamingo, is looking amazing. It's nice to have that shot of pink in the tank, and certainly when you don't have high lighting, it's a good plant to have. So as you can tell, it's not particularly Blackwater yet because we haven't had a huge amount of tannins release, but I know that this wood will release tannins over time, so we will just show you a later video shortly of a few more weeks on. And here we go. This is about a month on. So you can actually see that over the right hand side the plants haven't grown too tall. That is probably because of the floating plants that I've got on top. So you can see obviously the areas are quite dark, but we've got significant levels of tannin here, which are actually really good for the fish. There is actually some chemicals within the tannins that would leeches, which are said to be quite good for fish health. So they do seem to quite like this environment. As you can see, they're very, very active at the moment, and there are a lot of babies. So you can see a little yellow one there and a little grey one. We won't know whether they're male or female until they get big enough for us to see their coloration. So it will be quite nice to see them grow up and see what they look like. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking now and let you guys have a last look of the tank in peace and quiet. So thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you again for the next one.